Hey, it's Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it's Monday. It's September 30th. This will be our chart lesson for today. And notice what we did here. We trended lower all the way back down to this midline, bounced off of it, and turned higher. We didn't quite close on the high. For the most part, we spent most of the day in a range, but then we trended lower, broke lower out of the range, and reversed and trended back up to the higher side. Again, we didn't quite close on the highs, but it ends up a bullish day and we closed higher for the day. So um, let's flip over to the 2000 tick chart and you can see a better look at what I'm describing there. But it's really mostly was a range day today until we broke lower and had a failed breakout out the low side. We did trend a little lower, so it wasn't an instant failure, but as most times happens, those breakouts fail and it reversed. It turned into a really nice rally after that point. So let's flip over to the 2000 tick chart and we'll take a look at it and we'll go through the trades. And you can see we were pretty much in a range until it kind of changed right here. And then we shot higher, trended up. We didn't quite close on the high, but we closed much higher outside the range, and it was a higher close for the day as well. This red line's where we closed yesterday. This is where we closed today. It's almost 5, so the market's about to reopen. But here it is the way I saw it, mostly sideways for the day. As you can see, had this failed break lower that reverses, comes back, retests the lows, takes off, and a lot of this movement upwards came after the 2:30 hour. But let's zoom in here. We'll go through the trades and see what we got here today. But we had broken lower here around 6:30, found a new low, and we weren't quite back to the EMA again. And notice we make a double top here, so you get a new high and you get a first entry, second entry, and it's a higher low as well. So I like that, just to try to ride it back to the EMA. And if we get lucky and it turns out to be the low of the day, then we might get more out of it. And of course, it does turn out it goes higher. We make another new high here, and you pull back, you get a first entry, then it turns lower, turns back up. You need to wait for this one to close, break above that. It's technically a second entry when it went back above. Let me zoom in here a little more. It technically was a second entry when it went above this bar, but I'd wait for this to close, and if it closes good enough, your signal bar closes where it qualifies, you can go long there. There was a higher low here, but you really have to sit tight on that one because it's starting to look congested. It should have really taken on off there. When it does, that makes it a little suspect. It ends up going higher, but it doesn't do it like we would like for it to do it. It's just not a sure thing entering there. But finally, we bounce off the high end of the range a couple of times, or the channel a couple of times. And notice too what we have done. We filled that gap. Here's where we opened at 8:30. This is where we closed the previous day, so there's a gap there, and prices will generally try to fill that gap, which they did. And once they fill that gap, it turns down, at least temporarily. But notice this is your first break. You get a 2 legs back, and you get a second entry long right here. You could trade this one on the engulfing one. I'd probably wait for this to close, to be honest, because you're below the EMA here and you don't have a real close outside of this. He ends up getting a close outside and a new low all in one bar here. So but this is I'd want to wait for this close. You could trade it on the engulfing because that's mostly a full bar. When I say that, this bar needs to be all bearish or all green. You don't want a lot of stem and stuff. And you get a little stem on that one. So I'd probably wait for this to close. Although, that's mostly bearish and mostly colored bar. So I think you could trade that on the engulfing bar if everything else looked okay there. But since we're still in this channel, you need to make sure this closes outside, which it does. Then I like going long on a break above that bar. You get a higher low here too as well, but I think it's moved too far by that point. And notice you think we're going to go higher, and then it reverses and we're headed lower. I don't see any chance to get short here, though. Comes back, and we confirm that trend line here on a first entry, and then you get a second entry short here, and still further confirmation of that trend line. So I like that second entry short right there. Notice too on this, you get a break and a new high. That sets up for a nice entry, and then you get a lower high here. Then we trend on down, and we come up short this time, which will probably lead to a break. We actually looks like we got a close outside here. This actually may be a little steeper than what I've drawn it here. So we probably get a little better closeout than it even looks like. That looks more like the channel there. And you can see we clearly get a couple of closes outside here. And two legs down, then it reverses. This one's tempting, but I'd wait. Trends on up, you get a close outside, new high. And we're just kind of chopping sideways. I just don't see anything. I think it's, you want to go short here. Maybe you can. It makes a new, we pushed to a new high here at one point, and so I like waiting on a lower high. Unfortunately, you don't get one, and it ends up breaking out again. Now you do get a triple test here, but now it's looking like we may be in an uptrend here. You could still argue for that to be. It makes another new high too, but that's a very bearish bar that closes well back inside what looks like a possible channel there. The key is, do you have enough room here? If you do, you could take that trade. Again, I'm not crazy about it, but there's reasons to consider that trade. And then we get a confirmation of the trend line here, but not a very good signal bar. And then we're bouncing really between the top of the range and the trend line here. And you actually get a triple test here, but again, it's just so congested, and it looks like we're in an uptrend because we got this confirmed, and you can clearly see the upper side here. So I'm wary of that one. Again, it makes a new high. You know, it's a possibility, but I just think there's better trades out there. And you end up getting a break here, moving up, but no chance to enter that. You make a new high here. Now this is notice you got a new low. You get a first entry and a second entry, and you clearly get a close outside new high. So that's a second entry short. You might want to wait on the lower high. It's still a long way away. We clearly got a close out inside a new high. I tend to like that trade, but you're probably better to wait and see if you get a lower high, which you get right here, and you get a big bearish bar. That's the better place to enter. We come back again and get a triple test, but no signal bar. But then you get another test, and you get a bearish signal bar. I like entering there as well. We just end up kind of working down to sideways, and I don't see anything else in here that I really like. We do come back here. There's a hidden second entry here, but that's not the greatest signal bar either, so it would have worked if you took it, but I mean, I'd call this a double bottom. So that's just a first entry, although there is somewhat of a hidden second entry. That's a little more advanced, but that doesn't make sense. Just don't worry too much about it. Another thing here too, I think this makes a tick higher, 91.50. No, they're the same. They're equal. So you could, if you had a good signal bar there, you might consider that one. I think you need to wait personally. This is actually a little tighter here. It's more like this right here. But there is a hidden second entry there. It's just not a good enough signal bar in my opinion. And then we bounce here off the lows, come back to the highs. Again, I don't see anything I like there. This is just a first entry here. We do get a close outside here and a new high. Then we're just kind of headed lower. And again, I don't see anything in there to get into this trade until down here you get a first entry, second entry. And there's still room to these lows. That's the key. I don't know if you really have enough room to this low here. Let's just see what you got there. Yeah, you got 2 points. So I marked it green because it looks a little congested, and I wasn't, you know, at the time it's real close to having enough room. But there's a reason to take that trade. If you took it, I think you're probably okay there. The key is there enough room to this low here, and do you have enough room to scalp out? But being that close to this low, with that trend channel working all the way down and it's still holding there, I would say you're probably going to at least test this low. And you can see we did, but it ends up going lower here. And I just don't see anything down through here that you can really trade until we get a reversal pattern here. Notice you got a new low, you get a first entry, and then you get a second entry. Now notice there is a little dip lower right there, but honestly, even though by the counts that would be a third entry, that looks like two legs up to me. So it looks like two second entry short that fails. That looks like a reversal pattern to me. And you can see it trades like one. And there's even a hidden second entry there too. So I like that entry because most of these breakouts fail. But you can see we got a close outside, a couple legs to a new low, and then it's reversing. Runs back up here, and we tried to go lower 1, 2, 3 times, and you get a nice signal bar here. I like going long there. There's a bit of a higher low here. I just think you have to wait on that one. Don't take that trade. You see it doesn't go very far. It would have worked. Now you can't go long above that because you already made a new high. You would have to trade this on the engulfing bar, and honestly, I don't know if that broke higher or lower first. I'd just skip that trade either way. I don't really like it. Even if it broke lower first, I don't really like that trade. Then you get your close outside, new high, and it looks like we may sell off here and we end up going higher again. We get a new trend here just before the 2:30 hour. And notice what happens. You get a first entry, second entry, but you also get, this looks like a double top to me. So it looks like a first entry and then a second entry to me. And it confirms that trend line. It's a small bar. I think it's 6 or 7 ticks. It's 7 ticks. I like going long there. And you could have probably got a runner on that one and ridden that well into the 2:30 hour all the way probably to 3 o'clock or so. Depending on how you played it, of course. But you probably could have got a nice run. It's one of those last minute trades you got to be careful with because you can't afford to take a loser this late in the day unless you've already had several winners, good winners. Because what happens after 2:30 if you take a loss right in here, then you don't have time to make it back. Now if you lose early in the morning, if you lose up here at 8:30 or 9 or 10, you got all day to make it back. But if you take a loser this late in the day, a lot of times you're not going to make it back. You're going to end with a losing day. So be real picky with your trades late in the day. So there it is. Again, it's just a range day. We had a little failed break lower, and then we broke out the top side. Looks like it was going to fail as well. We ran out of time before it traded back to the range, but they're probably pretty equal breakouts. And you can see that they're almost perfect breakouts. So you get an equal breakout on this side that you did this side a lot of times. If you have your range drawn correctly, you'll notice that quite often. So there it is, and once you had that equal move up, it starts selling off again. So just a range day that broke out and closed higher. It looks like we're trying to take it all back now. The market's opened up. It's only been open about 5 or 6 minutes here, but there was a speaker here. Fed chair speaks at 12:55, and you just can't hardly trade that stuff. I mean, maybe he did say something because we did kind of turn down here. Let me see what time we kind of turned down. 1 o'clock, 1:10. So maybe he did say something at 12:55. You know, it's hard to be flat for these speakers because you don't know if they're going to say anything or when they're going to say it, and they don't always start right at 12:55. They don't always, you know, they may be 30 minutes in or an hour into his whatever he's speaking about, his speech, before he says something that might affect the market. So you need to be aware of these, but you don't necessarily have to be flat on those. Just be aware of them, and you know, in case something crazy happens, always have your safety stop in place if you're trading or whatever. And you know, you may not take a trade right at 12:55. You might give it a few minutes and just make sure the market's acting normal, which it is. I mean, this is a pretty strong sell-off, but it's acting normal all the way down through there. Just a tight sell-off there. So anyway, that's how I saw it today. Mostly a range day that closed higher. Not much else you can say about this day. Pretty standard range type day with a failed breakout the lower side, followed by an equal distance failure out the top side. And at this point, both of those breakouts seem to have failed, just like we teach it. So it's amazing how many trading strategies you see that tell you to trade with the breakout. And that's what happens. They teach people to enter here, and so they go short here, and they teach them to put their safety stop over here, so they're risking all that. And usually you don't even get that much move. You just get you get a little move down, and it reverses, and then it runs out the other side. And because of all those buy stops down here from people that went short, it gives it momentum and it shoots it up the other way. And so they'll use a failed breakout on one side or the other when they can't take the market higher or lower, whichever way the prevailing trend tends to be wanting to go. And right now that prevailing trend is mostly up because we're in a long-term uptrend. So they fail it out this side, and they know all these traders that don't know any better will go short here and put their buy stops up here, and they'll risk all of this. And most 9 times out of 10, they just get stopped out. You know, unless they entered right here and took some profit down here somewhere on the way back up, all of them's buy stops are sitting up here. And when this thing breaks through, it hits those. Look how it rockets up right there. You can see how it rockets up. Boom. It comes back and then it rockets up again. So that's what kind of happens on these things. So anyway, I'm going to wrap it up. Just kind of a basic range day with a breakout to the low side, and it looks like going to be a failed breakout to the upper side as well. And they were equal distance, as you can see by I showed you here. So, and you'll see that a lot. Whatever amount you break out on this side, you'll get at least that much on the other side. In most cases, not 100%. Sometimes it'll just keep going on this side, and sometimes it may not. You may not get an equal distance either. So, but that's just something to watch for. It happens a lot, so be aware of it. But anyway, I'm going to wrap it up. We'll be back again to do it tomorrow. I'm done for today. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.